who will introduce our next speaker.
Good morning, everybody. Carol Alexander Lewis is the founder and publisher of Modern Parent magazine. Carol received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Dillard University, a master's degree in Educational Administration and Supervision from Xavier University, and she's currently working on a doctorate in education leadership. Immediately after Hurricane Katrina, Carol Alexander started Modern Parent magazine. During this time, she interviewed Barack Obama, Gayle King, Donna Carey, Susie Armand, Geoffrey Canada, Dr. Joyce Epstein of Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Richard Elmore, and several other professors from Harvard University. She has interviewed many members of the United States Congress and countless other educators, both local and national. Carol has had nearly 20 years of experience in public school education. Her teaching, school site administration, and district level administrative experience ranges from preschool to high school. She currently serves as an adjunct professor at Dillard University. As a central office administrator of Signature Elementary Schools, that was during Superintendent Amato's time. And these were the beginnings of what we have now as charter schools. She supervised 10 schools. She also served as an administrator of Title I and Federal Consolidated Program. Carol is very aware of current educational trends, and she's acutely aware of the importance of parental involvement in children's education. She and her husband are the parents of 2 sons, and Carol has partnered with the United States Department of Education to organize 3 parent forums. 2 of them were at SUNO and 1 was at the Superdome. WIN, that is Women in the NAACP, potential WIN members and gentlemen, it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce my friend, Ms. Carol Alexander Lewis.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is my pleasure to stand before the NAACP. It is my pleasure to stand before so many African American faces. I feel as though I can exhale. After Katrina's introduction, she mentioned the fact that I'm the publisher of a magazine. And as such, it is very rare that I get to speak before a group of all African American faces. And so, again, I just exhale and tell you how blessed I feel to stand before you today. Thank you. So, what I'm going to do is speak to you just a little bit about the importance of parental involvement. As Katrina mentioned, I do have 2 decades of experience in the field of education. And that has actually formed my foundation as a publisher. It guides what I write, it guides what I publish, it guides what I allow to appear in Modern Parents magazine. The focus of the magazine could have been academics only. The audience could have been educators. The audience could have been the African American community. Audience could have been women only. After fervent, effectual prayer, I received confirmation from our Creator on the scope of the audience. And His word to me was to provide the information that He provides to me across the masses, but not to forget my foundation. So the scope of the publication is national. It focuses on education. It focuses on parenting. It's actually designed to bring those two worlds together, because there's a bridge that needs to happen there that doesn't really exist in a very formed way. So what the publication is designed to do is to take some information that educators are privy to and that they take for granted, and to form it so that it is attractive and important to parents. One of the major characteristics, the common thread that I see among students who are successful, regardless of socioeconomic background, of race, of lot in life, can be summed up in two words, and those two words are parental involvement. It doesn't matter if we have a child who lives on St. Charles Street, or if we have a child that lives on what we think of as the opposite of St. Charles Street. If there's not a home environment that's conducive to learning for that child, that's going to affect how that child grows. That soil is affected by what you put into it. I'm going to take, for example, God is asking me to share an illustration that He gives me frequently. And that illustration has to do with His cycle, His life cycle for plants and how things grow. We have a nice poinsettia here. And this poinsettia needs a few things to grow. It needs water, it needs sunlight, and most importantly, exactly, it needs soil. So actually, I actually left soil for last because it is the very most important part of what causes this plant to grow. What you put into that soil is very important. If I were to place any type of liquid, say if we put soda here, say we put orange juice here. Orange juice is very healthy in certain environments, right? But in this environment, would orange juice be healthy? For this particular plant, the best liquid for it is water, is pure, clean water, non-diluted, pure water. So if we provide this plant with those key elements that it needs and focus on what is good for the plant will grow. This is an analogy that can also be equated to children and their success. If we have children whose foundation or soil is a very loud, unfocused environment. If we have children whose environment is filled with elements that are not healthy for growth, that could take the form of nutrients, that could take the form of actually expressing the importance of education or lack of that. If key elements are not in place for children, that impacts the way they grow. So one thing that I always like to share with the audiences that I speak with is to pay very close attention to the soil. Pay very close attention to what is forming around the child. You know, home learning environments is something that I wish I had enough time to spend on, because that is so very important. And there are some key elements that are very basic to a home learning environment that can really turn the tide in a successful child and one that's not as successful. Basic changes about the way we think of the items that we place in our home, the items that we give for gifts, the items that we show priority for with our children. One thing that I hear quite often is that parents tell me children don't like to read. And I ask them, how often do they see you reading? They tell me that children like to visit the social media sites. They tell me that children like to visit sites that deal with gaming. They tell me what the children prefer to visit. And then I ask them, what types of sites do your children see you visit? What types of sites do you talk to them about visiting? What types of alternative sites are you exposing them to that gives them another whole menu of thought when they're thinking about places they can go on the internet? So, yes. And so what we really need to do is really offer children alternatives to some of the issues that we're seeing. And in many cases, I may have to work with, and I really have a great passion for working with, parents who have not completed the full K-12 cycle. And so these parents are actually the parents that I had in mind when I started Modern Parents Magazine. As an educator, I taught. And I taught on the secondary level. However, I